morning service. Let's begin our morning with this classic sing-along. Please stand as you are able. We're going to get ourselves moving a little bit. Sing along with us if you know the song. Feel free to sway or clap or dance if you don't know the words yet, but it's pretty easy. We'll teach it to you. Day by day, day by day, oh dear Lord, great things I pray, to see thee clearly, to see thee more clearly, love thee more nearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day, day by day, day by day, oh dear Lord, three things I pray, to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day, day by day. Let us pray.
And so taking a breath, feeling our feet connected to the earth, we call forth the activity of spirit with our opening statement. Together, there is but one presence and one power in my life and in the universe, God the good, omnipotence.
Day by day, day by day, oh dear Lord, three things I pray: to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly,
Back to see.
to see thee more clearly, and love thee more dearly,
Back to see.
to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly,
Follow.
follow thee more nearly, day by day.
Thank you. You may be seated.
So good morning and welcome. So Reverend Karen is still out on her travels, and so we have our guest speaker this morning, Michael Bogar, who I'll tell you a little bit more about later on. And Aaron, our worship arts director, is also out today, but we have our home team, our marvelous home team here, and so we are so grateful to have them with us. And so let us begin with our vision statement. So let us affirm that together. We are an accessible and inclusive spiritual sanctuary for all ages and stages of life. We offer spiritual practices and a community that honors diversity and encourages self-empowerment. We co-create a world that works for all, and so it is. So if you are joining us online, thank you for joining us online and being here with us, whether it's now or watching at a later time. And if you are joining us online, I invite you, if you have a prayer request, type that into the chat, and also maybe just say hi to one another, whether you're on the website or Facebook or YouTube. And if you're here in the room and you have a prayer request, you can write it on a little prayer form over there and put it in the box, and the prayer team will pray with everyone during the week. So Reverend Karen had a letter that came out this week about our fundraiser. Hopefully people found that in their inbox. If you didn't find that or you didn't receive it, maybe check your spam folder. And if you still didn't find it there, contact the office and we'd be happy to send out another copy for you. All right, so now there's a few more announcements for everyone watching online, and if you're here in the room, I invite you to stand and greet one another.
All right, invite everybody to return to their seat when you can finish your conversation. Good morning. My name is Joseph Zahn, and I'm not your guest presenter today, but Michael Bogart will be here shortly. In the very last lines of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins is meeting with Gandalf the Wizard. Bilbo brings up his central role in changing the course of events on Middle-earth. He wonders whether or not the divine prophecies sent from the gods could be reconciled with his, Bilbo's, personal choices and relationships with good and evil. Gandalf the Wizard answers, "Surely you don't believe the prophecies, you don't disbelieve the prophecies because you had a hand in bringing them about yourself. You don't really suppose, do you, that all your adventures and escapes were managed by mere luck just for your sole benefit? You are a very fine person, Mr. Baggins, and I'm very fond of you. But you are only quite a little fellow in a wide world after all."
So today for our meditation, we are absolutely delighted and very lucky to have Andrea Carino doing a sound bath for us with her beautiful bowls. And to lead into that, we're going to sing an original song by Erin. You may notice she's not here. She'll be back in a few weeks, but she left us this song. As I tell you a bit about the song, I invite you to take this opportunity to turn off your cell phones, set aside any distractions, really create a space for yourself where you can sit in this sound and really let it wrap itself around you, as the bowls are so good at doing. Erin wrote this song as a blessing to the people we love, whether those people are in this room with us or at home or in a different state or country or a different state of being. And so I encourage you, as you sing along or as you listen, to direct that to those people, even and especially if those people happen to be yourself right now. Self-love is a very important thing too. Go ahead and join me as you can. Across these miles, I send you love. Can you feel it? Across these miles, I send you love. Can you feel it? Lift your head, breathe it in. Let the miracle of love begin. Across these miles, I send you love and say amen. Across these miles, I send you love. Can you feel it? Across these miles, I send you love. Can you feel it? Lift your head, breathe it in. Let the miracle of love begin. Across these miles, I send you love and say amen.
these miles, I send you love. Can you feel it? Across these miles, I send you love. Can you feel it? Lift your head, lift your head, breathe it in. Let the miracle of love begin. Across these miles, I send you love and say amen. Across these miles, I send you love. Can you feel it? Across these miles, I send you love. Can you feel it? Lift your head, lift your head, breathe it in. Let the miracle of love begin. Across these miles, I send you love and say amen. a symphony, soft as it shifts from dark beneath, a poem that flows, caressing my skin. In all of these things you reside, and I want to flow from the pen, bow, and brush, with paper and string and canvas tight, with ink in the air to dust your light. From morning till the black of night, this is my call, I belong to you. This is my call to sing the melodies of you. This is my call, I can do nothing else. I can do nothing else. You're the scent of an unfound bloom, a simple tune I only write variations to, a drink that will knock me down on the floor, a key that will unlock the door, where I hear a voice sing familiar themes, then beckons me weave notes in between, a bow and a string, a tap and glass. You pour me till the day has passed. This is my call, I belong to you. This is my call to sing the melodies of you. This is my call, I can do nothing else. I can do nothing else. This is my call, I belong to you. This is my call to sing the melodies of you. This is my call, I can do nothing else. I can do nothing else. This is my call, I belong to you. This is my call to sing the melodies of you. This is my call, I can do nothing else. I can do nothing else. This is my call, I belong to you. This is my call to sing the melodies of you. This is my call, I can do nothing else. I can do nothing else.
Thank you, Jennifer, and our home team. We are blessed, yes? Thank you. So as I said, our guest speaker this morning is someone that most of you probably know, Reverend Michael Bogar. So happy to have him back here again with us, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about him. So Michael's approach is from a full life experience relating to a wide range of people. He has a way of communicating to both those at the very top of their game as well as those ready to quit. He has taught at graduate and undergraduate levels and has a proven ability to inform and inspire students ranging from the informal beginner to the most serious scholar. Students and audience members frequently comment on his depth of scholarship, personal approach, and sense of humor. Michael has studied and taught the classical religious texts from many religious traditions, and he is a brilliant integrator of mythology, theology, personal spirituality, practical philosophy, and depth psychology. He combines deep scholarship and spontaneous humor and a contagious enthusiasm with a down-to-earth, practical approach. So you can find out more at his website at michaelbogar.com. And I invite you in joining me for a warm welcome of Reverend Michael.
Wow, that's quite a bio. Some of it's even true. Is this on? Okay. Good morning. It's good to be back here. It's been a while since I have done a talk. And it felt these last few days, I told Cheryl, I said, I'm terrified. It feels like I don't know what I'm doing or if I should even try it. But here I am, so let's launch. Karen contacted me a few weeks ago and said that you all were doing a study here on the alchemy of relationships. Does that sound familiar? What's alchemy mean? To change. Anyone else? Alchemy. Transformation. The word itself, al-chemy. Al is Arabic definite article, the. Chemo, or some derivative thereof, is a Greek word for pouring. So alchemy means the pouring. And the idea is pouring things together and mixing them up so that you have something entirely different after it's all stirred. So the alchemy of relationships has behind it the notion that we come into this cosmos, and this is a very Greek idea. It's found in all the world's religions, but it's a very Greek idea, especially with Plato and Neoplatonists, a very Greek idea that this cosmos is the mixing bowl. And that everything that's poured into it, today we would talk about atoms and galaxies as the small and the large ends, but everything that's poured into this mixing bowl is alchemy. It is a stirring together. There's nothing that is separated one from the other. It's all connected. The word providence is a word that describes that for many, many different cultures. Provideo, to see before. To see beforehand, provideo, that the mixing together is going to be cooked up, which is an alchemical idea, and when you pull it out of the oven, you have something delicious. But when you stir it all together, it looks like a mess. Now, the alchemy of relationships fits that description perfectly. Because each of us is in relationship. And when I'm talking about relationships here, I'm not just talking about with people. Most of us just automatically assume that relationships are with people. But I'm suggesting that in a larger cosmic view, it is relationships not only with people, although we're going to focus on that this morning, but with objects, with geography, with ideas, political ideas, social ideas, with emotions, and all of the different things that we find in this mixing bowl. In fact, from the ancient Greek point of view, and The Hobbit, by the way, Tolkien was very influenced by Neoplatonism. C.S. Lewis was very influenced by Neoplatonism. The New Thought movement was influenced by Neoplatonism. So all these ideas we're looking at here have been very popular in a lot of the cultural literature and our religions. There is something going on for each of us in every relationship, places, ideas, people, etc., that is making something, baking something. You ever feel like you're being cooked? You know, you ever feel like you're being stirred together with people you don't want to be stirred together with? Do you ever feel like you're being poured into a bowl with contents that just don't agree with your character and your politics or whatever it happens to be? That's alchemy. Alchemy is the stirring together and mixing together in order to bake and make something entirely different than the individual ingredients. So with that idea in mind, we're going to look at the Greek myth of Eros and Psyche. My favorite story. One of my favorite teachers, James Hillman, said, find yourself a good story and live with it for your whole life. And the Eros-Psyche story to me is one of the best stories because it is a story of relational alchemy. It talks about Psyche, who is the beautiful feminine character. The word Psyche for the Greeks is the same idea that we have for soul. Psyche is soul.
the female character. Eros is the divine god in the story. And the two of them are the stars of the story. And as we look at the story here very briefly this morning, we're going to look at the alchemy of relationships through that story of Eros and Psyche. And what I want to do is suggest that in that story, it talks about soulmates. Now, most of us, when we hear the term soulmate, what do you think? What comes to mind? What's a soulmate like? A mentor? Romantic? Okay. What else? What's a soulmate? Soulmate. Someone that resonates with you. You can just really, you're kind of on the same wavelength. And I'm not going to disagree with that. That is a very clear definition of soulmate. But for the ancient Greeks, that's only one definition of a soulmate. For the ancient Greeks, as we're going to see from the Eros and Psyche story, every single individual we come in contact with is a soulmate. Every individual. Here's the story, and I'll pause as we go through the different kinds of soulmates. If you want a title and a homiletic outline for this talk, we're going to look at the 4 kinds of soulmates. Number 1, as the story begins, Psyche, this beautiful feminine character, is raised by a king and a queen. Her sisters marry, and Psyche is single and beautiful. In fact, she is so beautiful, she doesn't want to get married. Why? That would limit her possibilities. She loved the attention from everyone around her. She walked the streets and people would comment on her beauty. In fact, one day in the story it says that she was walking down the streets and she heard 2 women talking together saying, look at Psyche. She's more beautiful than Aphrodite. Well, that's one thing you don't want to mess with, is the gods and the goddesses in ancient Greece. But Psyche began to take that to heart, and she went home and she looked in the mirror and she said, you know what? I do believe I am more beautiful than Aphrodite. Well, word got back to Aphrodite. And Aphrodite said to her son Eros, the beautiful divine Eros with a little quiver of arrows, right, with the poison-tipped darts that make you fall madly in love. Aphrodite said to Eros, I want you to go down to earth and find that little wench who thinks she's more beautiful than me, and I want you to shoot one of these poison darts of love into her, and tomorrow I'm going to send the most ugly, horrible human man in the world to her door, so when she wakes up with that love potion coursing through her veins, she'll fall in love with him, marrying him, and live miserably ever after. First codependent relationship in history. So Eros, of course, says, Mother, whatever you say. He goes down, he finds Psyche asleep in her bed, he pulls out his arrow and he begins to get ready to shoot the arrow, and he walks up closer to the bed and he sees her face just as he lets the dart go, and he thinks to himself as the dart is flying through the air, oh my goddess, this woman is more beautiful than my mother. Oh crap. So according to the story, he falls backwards in kind of a swoon, and he accidentally scrapes his leg with one of his other arrows, so he is suddenly filled with this erotic desire for this Psyche character. And he runs over to the bed and he pulls the dart out and he says a magic spell and takes the spell away so that she doesn't fall in love with this horrible man the next day. And he goes home and his mother says, did you do the deed? And he says, yes, Mother. Well, nothing happened. So Aphrodite had to come up with another plan. And she actually put a curse on the whole town so that no one would look at Psyche with any kind of desire, and they began to ignore her completely. Now, if you were Psyche at this point, and you were used to complete attention 24/7, and suddenly, overnight, nobody paid attention to you, what might your response be? Would you be happy? No, probably not. This is the first kind of soulmate. It is the self-obsessed individual. Any of you ever meet self-obsessed individuals? Most of you haven't. Any of you ever been a self-obsessed individual? self-obsession, according to the ancient Greeks, in the alchemy of relationships, is the very first kind of soulmate. Self-obsession is a divine quality. Do you know that? A narcissist, well, that's another story. We're not going to get into that this morning. But according to the ancient Greeks, the divine manifests itself in the ego, in the self-obsession, and that is a kind of soulmate. So in this great mixing bowl of making or transmuting human souls into complete and perfected souls, we must come in contact with self-obsessed individuals. This means that the self-obsession that we find in each of us, because we all are self-obsessed to some level, yes? I am, and I know others are. This is a kind of soulmate. Now, this is not a pleasant person typically to be around. But according to the Greeks, there is some reason that we must come in contact with people who are self-obsessed, and we also must be self-obsessed. And when you put two self-obsessed people together in a relationship, guess what you get? Hell, chaos, trouble. But according to the Greeks, this is all part of providence. Now, we could go to Tolkien, we could go to C.S. Lewis till we have faces and some of the other literature and see that this works in all of these stories. But the first kind of soulmate that is going to make or transmute us into a perfect soul are egoic people, including the ego in ourselves. What do you think of that? No time to think about that right now because I'm on a time limit. But if you come to the class, we will have time to discuss this in more detail. I just want to leave it there at this point. The story goes on and says that after Aphrodite put a curse on the city and nobody paid any attention to Psyche, that the parents received a prophecy. And the prophecy said, take this young woman Psyche to the top of that mountain and abandon her there, and the gods will take care of her. So they do, and it's very, very sad processions. They take their daughter, who is in a state of complete despair because the self-obsession doesn't work anymore. And you can see in the alchemical process, we must all go through that experience of losing the ego. I don't know if any of you looked at your high school graduation picture recently. You don't look the same, do we? So we have to lose that part of ourselves. That self-obsession has to have it do its work, but then it begins to fade away. So Psyche goes up to the top of the mountain, and she awaits her fate, and she falls asleep in tears, weeping. There's a lot of weeping in this story. And there's a lot of weeping in alchemical relationships. Does that make sense? She goes up there, she falls asleep, and she feels herself lifted off the side of the cliff and wakes up slightly, and Zephyr, the gentle west wind, comes and picks her up and places her down in a deep valley. There's a lot of deep valleys in this story as well. Because for the ancient Greeks, the alchemical process of transmutation has a lot of ups on the mountains and down in the valleys. They didn't have Prozac back then, they had Plato. Big difference. In fact, there's a book. Have you seen it? Plato or Prozac? Really, it's very interesting. Look it up. Because the idea is that a lot of times today, when we have these experiences of being cooked, we resort to something to just make the experience go away rather than let it cook us completely until the transmutation can take us to the next phase. So for the Greeks, she went up to the top of the mountain, she was lowered into a valley, and there she saw this big, beautiful palace. And this palace was filled with tapestries and fountains and gardens and servants and food and everything you could imagine. All your cares there taken care of. And she looked at it and thought, oh, how lucky is the person who lives in this palatial residence. And as she was looking at it, a servant ran out the door and said, are you Psyche? She said, yes. How did you know? She says, well, we've been waiting for you. The owner of this house, which by the way is Eros, who had fallen in love with her. You're going to see in this story that Eros, the divine lover, is involved all the way through the story, but in the background. This is very important for transmutation and alchemy of relationships because most of us just see the stuff that's going on around us and we're not aware that the divine Eros or the divine lover, the divine God, is involved in the background in every single thing we're going through, according to the Greeks. So they say, if you come to this palace and you choose to marry the owner of it, who is this very important Greek god, then you can live here and have all of your cares taken care of. Everything will be provided for you. She said, that sounds unbelievable. We call it marriage. And the servant says, but there's only one condition. You can never look at his face. He works all day and comes home at night, and there's no light, and you have to agree to never look at his face. This is very important in alchemical, the second stage or the second kind of soulmate, because the second kind of soulmate is when we actually get into relationships with people, marriage, friends, jobs, school, wherever. You understand what I'm saying? You get deeply, intimately involved with them, and all the rules are there. I call it the tribal stage. Not the ego stage, but the tribal stage of soulmates. It's very important that you can't look at the face, because anytime you're in a relationship with somebody initially, typically what do you see in that person that causes you to fall for them? We see the best, and we all put forth the best. We just do. How many times you've heard someone say, or you've said it yourself, when they've been in a relationship or a marriage or a partnership for a few years, they just were not the person I thought they were. Well, duh. None of us is. We're all blind to that. And the Greeks understood that. But that's part of the soulmate making process. So according to the story, Psyche says, okay, I'll marry him. I won't look at him. A lot of us that get married have been or are in a similar situation. We really don't see the person we're with fully. So she gets married, and they have a beautiful honeymoon that evening in the dark, and he leaves at sunlight, comes back in the dark, and they have this amazing relationship. All of her cares are provided for. This is the second kind of soulmate. We all have to have these experiences. We get married. We have friends. They're wonderful because they bring out the best in us. But the story goes on and says, one night as Psyche and Eros are lying in bed after making love and in that great glow of lovemaking, Psyche turns in the dark to Eros and says, you know, honey, I've been thinking. This is always dangerous in a relationship. And he goes, what have you been thinking about? She says, you know, I've been thinking that I haven't seen my sisters for a long time, and I'd like to have them come and visit me. And he said, I don't think that's a good idea. Now here we have a disagreement. And this is the kind of soulmates that the Greeks believed we had to have in order for us to be transformed. Every night he would come home and they were together. She would keep bringing up the sisters, bringing up the sisters, bringing up the sisters, until finally Eros relented and said, okay, all right, I'll make sure that they can come and visit you. Well, they come and visit her, and they have this wonderful time together. But as they leave, one of the sisters says, so tell me about your husband. What's he look like? Psyche says, I don't know. I've never seen him. The sisters say, what? One of the sisters says, you know, that's odd. I think the reason he won't let you see him is because he's a monster and he's fattening you up to eat you. Psyche said, you think? This is part of the alchemy of relationships. You understand what I'm saying? Something that was so good with a person that was so perfect, and a relationship, whether it's a friend, a family member, a sibling, a child, you understand this can be any kind of relationship in this mixing bowl, starts to get stirred from a place of being just this exquisite individual to somebody that I'm starting to question. Maybe they are betraying me. Maybe they have betrayed me. Maybe they're lying to me. Y'all with me here in this? According to the ancient Greeks, this is part of what certain kinds of soulmates do. Well, Psyche thinks about this. And she thinks about it. And one of the sisters says, if I were you, when he comes home and falls asleep, I would get out a lamp and take a look at him, and you'd see he was a hideous, ugly monster. Well, Psyche does just that. One night, Eros falls asleep. She pulls out a lamp. She walks up to the edge of the bed. She looks at this man she's been with for years but never seen him before, and she goes, oh my God, he's beautiful. And as she steps backwards, she accidentally spills some of the hot oil from the lamp on his shoulder, and he wakes up and he looks at her and he goes, what are you doing? You violated the conditions. Soulmates often disturb us by violating the conditions. This is part of the ancient Greek story of transmutation. Anybody ever gone through a relationship where somebody's betrayed you? You don't have to raise your hand, but it makes me feel better if you do. 2 hands from Don. According to the ancient Greeks, this is part of providence. The soul mixing, the alchemy, the cooking must include those kinds of experiences. In fact, the third kind of soulmate that we're going to look at in this story is the soulmate of disintegration. Because what happens is Eros jumps out of the bed, flies out the window, looks back and says, I'm so sorry, but you violated the conditions, I have to leave. Well, Psyche falls to the floor and cries herself to sleep, and when she wakes up in the morning, she finds what? No palace, no servants, no food, no gardens, no fountains, no tapestries, nothing. It's all gone. Been there, done that? You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes when these relationships come to an end, everything disappears. You may not lose all the material stuff, or you may, but you lose the emotional or whatever it happens to be there. According to the ancient Greeks, this is a third kind of soulmate, and it is the soulmate of disintegration. What do we call it today in our culture? What? Divorce? But personally, what is the experience to us, each of us as individuals, when we go through these kinds of things? Say it again. Breakdown, depression, fear, panic, anxiety over money. Have any of you ever had the experience of thinking into the future about money? Am I going to have enough? What if I live to be 100 and I need to go into a rest home? I'm getting into that category, and I'm having experiences that I never had before. So, according to the Greeks, this cooking process stirs these kinds of emotions into the mix because they evoke certain experiences in consciousness that bring us closer to being cooked and baked and delivered as the finished product. So do you ever think of a soulmate as someone that disintegrates you? I'm not asking you or telling you that you should, but I'm suggesting that the Greeks were onto something when they realized that when we fall apart, that falling apart is done in order to put us back together again. By the way, on that note, do you know what the Greek word psyche literally means? When the Greeks saw these little creatures floating through the air, flapping their little thin, tissue-thin wings, what did we call them? No, actual creatures, butterflies. For the Greeks, the butterfly was called a psyche. Isn't that beautiful? Because what that says is essentially each of us is a butterfly in that we have to go into the chrysalis, you know, the caterpillar that makes the chrysalis. And what happens to that caterpillar in the chrysalis? It turns to goo. It actually melts and liquefies, and that releases some enzyme that creates a brand new creature in that chrysalis. We call the chrysalis depression. We call the chrysalis agony or fear or terror, lying in bed at night, thinking. Do you ever think yourself into the chrysalis and feel yourself dissolving? We're going through some of this right now with some issues in our family and matters that happen in families. And I find myself lying in bed at night thinking, well, what if this happens, then that happens, and if that happens, then this will happen, and my life will be over, and I won't get, you know what I'm talking about? This is what goes on. This is part of the soulmate for the Greeks. Now, according to the story, Psyche goes through 3 tests, and we're not going to go into those tests in detail this morning, but we will in the class. Essentially, she has to sort some seeds. She goes to Aphrodite, says, I want to get back together with Eros, my divine lover. Aphrodite says, you have to sort some seeds. In this third kind of soulmate experience, it forces us to sort things. We call it psychoanalysis. This seed belongs to mom. Oh, this seed belongs to dad. And this belongs to my ex. And hell, this one belongs to my ex. And this one belongs to my ex. There's one for me. This third stage of disintegration is what forces us to sort through things and find out who I am apart from this person that I've been with. The second test is to go gather some golden fleece from some wild rams, and it's a very, very dangerous situation. And this is part of that third stage of soulmate disintegration, where we have to go find the gold in the trauma. You understand? We will either look just at the trauma or we will find the gold. And the third test that Aphrodite gives to Psyche is she says, you must take this little box of beauty and go down to Hades and go into hell and go to Persephone, the queen of the damned. The Greeks believed that beauty was kept in hell. And you have to gather some beauty from Persephone and come back. And if you succeed in that, I will let you see Eros, your divine lover, again. Well, Psyche succeeds. She goes all the way through. And by the way, in all these tests, an invisible God comes along and helps her. She comes back with the beauty. Another part of the third stage of soulmate disintegration is that we have to find the beauty in hell. Now, this is hard stuff, and this is what our churches need to help us do. Well, she gets the beauty. She comes back. Aphrodite tells her, she says, when you come back with the beauty from hell, it's for me, Aphrodite, not for you. Don't you dare open that box and look in it. But Psyche is sitting there. She succeeded with her third test, and she thinks to herself, you know, I've been to hell and back. I need a little beauty because I'm going to see Eros. So she opens the box. Guess what happens? It's a trick. Gas comes out. She falls unconscious, swoons, passes out. And that's the end of the story. No, it's not the end of the story. What happens, there is a fourth kind of soulmate. What happens is Psyche passes out. What's good for me in this story is that in our disintegrations, we often return to our old addictions, which hers was beauty, and we often fail. So the Greeks are essentially saying in this process of transformation, you are going to fail. But don't worry, because failure is part of the process. What happens in the story is that Psyche begins to wake up and she feels an arm under her back and another supporting her head, and she opens her eyes and she looks up, and just a few inches from her face is the face of Eros, her divine lover. She throws her arms around him and says, my God, you can't believe what I've been through to get to you. And he says, oh, no, I can't. She goes, no, I had to sort seeds. I had to cross the river and get gold. I had to go to hell. And he says, well, you know, each of those invisible hands that led you, it was me. He said, I wanted you as much as you wanted me. For the Greeks, the goal of transmutation of the soul, taking us from a caterpillar and making us into a butterfly, includes a co-participation between the human and the divine. And oftentimes the divine is in the background, invisible. But according to the story, and I don't have the painting here today, but from Bouguereau, William Bouguereau, a 19th century painter, there's a picture called The Ravishment or The Rapture of Psyche. And it's a picture of this beautiful young woman held in the arms of her lover Eros, and his wings are unfurled, and on her back are little butterfly wings. And they're soaring up into the heavens, and according to the Greeks, they go to heaven, they drink the nectar of the gods, they eat the ambrosia, and Psyche becomes divinely human. The end of the story. It's the way the book of Revelation ends, by the way, in the New Testament, the marriage feast of the Lamb. This is the way the story ends. What I want to read as I close here is a quote from Thomas More, Soulmates. And he says this, and this is kind of the seed of this talk, that there are different kinds of soulmates. He says, soul-centered effort on behalf of relationship has yet another quality that makes it different from more familiar modern schools of love and intimacy. In other words, many of the modern schools on love and intimacy tell us that if you're not always in a state of romance with somebody, you need to go find somebody else. You need to restore the romance. He says this, the soul is not dedicated to perfection. Work with the soul is not at all aimed at achieving an unblemished, unruffled relationship. On the contrary, it has an appreciation, the soul does, for human limitation and human folly. The alchemical view of the soul's progress makes room for the putrefaction of decay and melanosis, or blackening, burning. The shadow aspects are highly valued in traditional alchemy. Last line. Relationships have a way of rubbing our noses in the slime of life, an experience we would rather forgo, but one that offers an important exposure to our own depth of soul. So hopefully this message this morning is a message of encouragement that we are on our way to completion, to harmony, to unity with the divine, and everything in this mixing bowl on this earth, every relationship is part of that process. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down a road and back again. Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant. I'm not ashamed to say, I hope it always will stay this way. My hat is off, won't you stand up and take a bow? And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. 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 If it's a car you lack, I'd surely buy you a Cadillac. Whatever you need, any time of the day or night. I'm not ashamed to say, I hope it always will stay this way. My hat is off, won't you stand up and take a bow? And when we both get older, with walking canes and hair of gray, have no fear, even though it's hard to hear, I will stand real close and say, thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
And when we die and float away into the night and Milky Way, you'll hear me call as we ascend. I'll say your name, then once again, thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a
I
friend.
wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a
I
friend.
wanna thank you.
Thank you for being a friend.
I wanna thank you.
Very nice. We come to that time in our service. We get to bless our tithes and donations to Seattle Unity. We are grateful for this opportunity to join in the cycle of giving and receiving. You can text to give using the number on the screen, 206-350-8448, or by donating via the website at seattleunity.org. Thanks to all of you who give in whatever amount. Every gift matters and goes to support the mission and vision of this ministry. I invite you now to join me in blessing all the donations received. I give willingly, joyfully, and lovingly, knowing that God is the constant source of my supply. I give with graciousness and receive with gratitude.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you to all who give, whatever amount in any way. We are so grateful, and we see these gifts going back to each giver a millionfold. So a reminder, you can find out more about Michael's class coming up in October on our website under events. Check it out. It's a 3-week series, and I know, as he said, it would be a wonderful thing to join in diving deeper into this topic. And so let us now turn to prayer, praying for all those who have put forth prayer requests. And so I just invite you to take a breath and center. And we do call forth that activity of spirit, which is always present here now in this moment, calling forth divine order in the lives of Tom, Alyssa, Aaron, and Betty, and Colleen, and Carrie, for Bernice, and Chuck, Rick, and Mike, for Nolan and Gage, and also holding in our hearts Paul and Paul's family and friends. And if there's anyone else you know in need of prayer, I invite you to hold them in your heart, speak their names out loud if you want to. And we do hold all in love and light, affirming the very highest and best in the life of each one. And so now I invite you to join with me in affirming and praying our prayer for protection. Together, the light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
All right, go ahead and stand as you are able. We're going to close by singing "We Let the Love Wash Over Us." There's this big arm motion that I can't do because I'm playing bass. But Jen and the rest will show you. And if you're at home, move out that coffee table, pick up your cat or your kid or whoever's next to you, and join us.